Wednesday, January 23rd, 2019, regular meeting of the St. James Parish Council comes to order. Roll call.
Mr. St. Pierre?
Here.
Mr. Amato?
Here.
Mr. Patton?
Here.
Mr. Cooper?
Here.
Ms. Etienne Stibe? Mr. Kramer? Mr. Luke?
Here.
5 present. Ms. Etienne Stibe and Mr. Kramer is absent.
At this time, we have a prayer by Mr. Amato and a pledge by Mr. Cooper.
Please bow your heads. Dear Lord, thank you for allowing us to meet tonight as a parish government. A special blessing of warmth and comfort to all our residents battling this weather and all those who may be under the weather. Protect our brave men and women in uniform and continue to bless St. James Parish. In your most holy name we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance.
The minutes of the January 9th meetings was distributed to the council. At this time, if we don't have any corrections, we need a motion. Motion by Mr. St. Pierre, second by Mr. Amato for approval of the January 9th, 2019 public meeting minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll need a motion for approval of the January 9th, 2019 regular meeting minutes. We have a motion by Mr. Patton, second by Mr. Amato. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. President's report, Mr. Russo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There will be a civic source informational meeting regarding adjudicated property scheduled for Thursday, January 24th, tomorrow at 5 p.m. here at the Bear Free Index. The St. James Parish LSU and Southern Ag 4-H Livestock Show will take place this weekend, January 25th through the 27th at the Cow Palace on LHS grounds. I, along with Councilman Luke, Councilman Kramer, Councilwoman Stiles, and Councilman Sampier are headed to Washington, D.C. next Tuesday through Saturday. We will be involved in various meetings and events, including a River Region Economic Development Initiative breakfast and a chamber luncheon consisting of the chambers from across the state. While there, we will also be meeting with NACO officials to discuss upcoming legislative conference, GNO Inc. We will be meeting with them on an NFIP issue at hand, along with meeting with our senators. The Mississippi River levels are extremely high at this time. Either levee district will make no exceptions whatsoever for any excavation, within 500 feet from the crest of the Seneca levee. LDOTD pulled back from shutting down the Sunshine Bridge last weekend due to inclement weather. We haven't gotten word back yet from them as to when that actually will take place. So as soon as we get that information, we will inform you.
Mr.
That's
Russo,
all I have.
they had a sign on, when I went across it, they was gonna close this weekend coming.
Yeah.
It's still not effective, or?
We didn't receive a press release. I went on the website today, earlier this afternoon. It still wasn't posted, so I'm just not sure.
Yeah, they had it on the sign, so I just wanted, okay.
Hopefully it is this weekend, but man, if it is, we really need to get the word out and not just putting a sign by the bridge. That's all I have. Thank you. May God bless you. May God bless all of St. James Parish. Simplify.
Thank you, Mr. Russo. Any questions, comments from the council? None. Presentation, public comment.
Drew Gravois, Keep St. James Parish Beautiful Board's annual report.
Good evening. These years passed so fast, seems like I was just here for last year's report. I'm here on behalf of the entire board. Our chair is Mary Kleber. She's wonderful, very passionate about what she does, and she really keeps us going. So Mary and Michelle comes to our meetings a lot. We have Amber, who works for the parish. And one special person I want to tell you about, you might not know what she does for us, but Audrey Temple. Audrey, who's at the Welcome Center, she does really a lot for us with keeping things going, managing the things that we have going on, especially our association with Keep Louisiana Beautiful and Keep America Beautiful. There's monthly reports that have to be sent out to those people on the activities. We have certain requirements we have to meet to fulfill our membership with those associations, and Audrey does a wonderful job of keeping up with that. And because of Audrey's work, we were again rewarded the Circle of Excellence Award from Keep Louisiana Beautiful. So I just wanted to acknowledge the people that are involved. All of the members are very active. We had some new members come in this year. They're passionate about the work of keeping St. James Parish beautiful, both the anti-littering, beautification, and recycling. And I gave you a written report which highlights some things that we did this year. I just want to point out a couple of them. You might notice in the newspaper on a regular basis we have articles and notes about keeping the parish beautiful, recycling, anti-littering, etc. Those are done by a lady from Mary. Yeah, Mary. What's her last name again? Mary Walker. I think she's the Constable of Justice of the Peace there. She's very passionate. She's the one that took over that project, and if you look at the paper every week, you see there's a nice little article for that. We have been involved with community events, the Festival of the Bonfires, the Fast Food Farm Ag Day, and other projects in the parish. We have a new thing going on, Team Up to Clean Up. We have a bunch of supplies, pickers, vests, gloves, etc., that we acquired through grants and through the funds supplied by the parish. And we started last year with lending those out to people in the community who want to do their job, their part of keeping the parish clean. And I have a few examples on there. Friends Helping Friends, we had 15 volunteers who picked up 25 bags of litter. The MAC group, Making a Change group, which is from here in Vacherie, they picked up 25 bags of litter. Susan Bailey, who works in this building, and her friends, 22 volunteers picked up 60 bags of litter after the St. James High homecoming festivities. And if any of you passed by the school that weekend, it was a disaster. And Susan on her own decided to take that project up. She got her friends together. They cleaned up the whole area near the intersection and on the school grounds. Sharice Jasmine, she had 10 volunteers, including school kids, who picked up 15 bags of litter. We're going to have another Leaders Against Litter event coming up in the spring, so y'all will probably be getting letters on that. We hope that you can participate in that. And another thing that we did, and I participated at one of the parish industrial business meetings a couple of months ago, we put together some Love Where You Work and Love Where You Shop signs and posters. Those were done by Amber, who's here. She did a wonderful job. She's very talented. And our parish slogan is Love Where You Live. That's what's on the billboards you see, but we expanded it to Love Where You Work and Love Where You Shop. So those are just reminders to people to try to don't litter, not where you live, not where you work, not where you shop. And I think that went over very well. And one of the biggest issues we have with littering, believe it or not, is cigarette butts. So they're all over. We purchased some cigarette butt receptacles, and we're putting them out in public places. We did some beautification at the Welcome Center, especially. There were the window boxes that had going bad, and a couple of our members got together on their own and bought flowers and planted flowers at the Welcome Center. And we appreciate the parish supplying the Welcome Center with a full-time maintenance person. That's what people see when they come into St. James Parish, all the thousands of people that come through the Welcome Center on a yearly basis. So we appreciate the fact that the parish was able to get a maintenance man back on board there, and you know, he's doing a good job, and you can see how it reflects on our parish, what the Welcome Center looks like. We are going to be participating again in the Great America Cleanup. We're not sure if we're going to have a trash bash or not. We're definitely going to have Leaders Against Litter this year. I want to just mention briefly membership. We do have some very committed people. To be on this board, you have to be passionate about anti-littering and beautification and recycling. Unfortunately, people come and go, and they participate a little bit. So please, the members, the people that you have appointed individually to this board, please ask them to come to the meeting so that we can have a quorum and get the things done that we need to get done. When I was putting this together today, I didn't realize we did this much this year, but, you know, it's just a little bit at a time, but things get accomplished. And one last thing I want to talk about is recycling. You've heard me talk about recycling a lot. There are a lot of people that are passionate in this parish about recycling. I'm sure many of you are. This past meeting, we had someone from Waste Management that was supposed to come. I was not able to make the meeting. I don't know the results of that, but you know, if Waste Management is one of the biggest companies in the country, and we feel that if they can, you know, if they can help us, maybe we can get some kind of recycling started again in the parish. Either like we had in locations where people bring their recyclables to a certain location, and maybe eventually that might lead up to curbside recycling. So with all of that in mind, I'll be happy to answer any questions that y'all might have at this point.
No questions, Judge, but Mr. Donald Haynes did attend the last meeting,
Okay.
and he did give a packet to all of the members present. I imagine Mary had a couple extra.
Yeah.
He did meet with me prior. He wanted to come make a presentation to the council also, and the reason, and we begged him to get involved with some sort of recycling, and they're gonna help us where they could, but the market for the
Yeah, I realize that.
recycled products is just not there.
I realize that, but you know something? There's recycling going on in other places, so why
Yeah.
can't it go on here? Even though it's on a smaller scale, you know, you may have to subsidize it a little bit, but it does make the parish cleaner and more beautiful, and it makes people feel good about that.
Yeah.
I
And
know
he did-
I've traveled around the country in other states and in other cities and other countries. It's just a thing that happens automatically, so
Yeah,
I'm
and he
just
did
hoping.
say that there are ways they can help, and they will, so.
Okay. Well, hopefully that will come to fruition this year.
Yeah, and look, just for everybody's knowledge here, you know, a lot of times people run to the transfer facilities that we have on the east and west bank of the parish. And a lot of times, people may not think when they're just emptying that truckload into these big bins, but we do have iron recycle bins at each of the properties.
Right.
So that could be some recycling going on there by separating that iron from
I
the
think
rest
at
of
the one in Vacherie, the person in charge, you know, directs you there if you have iron or steel
Yes, they
or
are.
metal, and
But
they do a good job.
Yeah, but if
You know.
a guy don't take heed, a lot of it go in, so it'd be good for us to do some further education there also.
One other thing, just to mention, we will have also another electronics recycling event. We had that last year. We had about 40 to 50 people that drove through. We filled up a half a truck of old computers and printers and all of those, you know, kind of things that you don't want to throw away, but this is a company that certifies they'll be cleaned out and then they'll be recycled for either use. If it's laptops, they fix them and give them out to the kids in the schools. If it's other things, they break them down and get the silver and things that are out of them. So those are some things we do. In closing, I just want to thank you. I know as part of your budget every year, there's a small amount that's set aside for Keep St. James Parish Beautiful. We try to spend that money as carefully as we can, but I think we are making some progress. So thank you very much.
And I just want to end by saying too, Judge, thank you, thank Mayor, the chairman, and everybody else that pitch in and try and do what they can to keep St. James Parish beautiful.
Thank you. I'll pass that message on. Just want to mention, somebody left a cell phone up here. I'm not sure. Oh, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Gribble.
Thank you, Judge.
At this time, we'll call for public comment on any specific agenda item, and I'll state that we will call for public comment again, specifically on agenda item old business 2, once we get to that item. So at this time, any public comment on a specific agenda item other than old business number 2? None? Correspondence received?
None.
Appointments to boards and commissions?
A resolution reappointing Wilbur Reno to the hospital board.
Mr. Amato?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Of course, Mr. Wilbur Reno has been a longtime member of the St. James Parish Hospital Board, meets all the criteria for attendance and participation, and I make a motion to reappoint him to the term.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Amato, second by Mr. Patton. All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Old business, the director's update, District 5 alternate access route. Mr. Cooper, Mr. Grubba.
Thank you, sir. I just would like Mr. Blaze or Ms. Michelle, parish president, to just give a quick update to the council of what took place at the last meeting we had with all the managers from plans or representation from different plants in the area.
Industry had their meeting on last week. So one state make a decision in reference to the pad forward that they will have. We ask that they inform us, as well as yourselves, as the council, into the decision in moving forward with this particular project.
Anybody else? Well, what it was, we had most of some of the people that's in the audience and to the council. Most representatives for the industries on the West Bank and the 5th District were there. And we gave them an update. I think Mr. Glenn gave them an update, overview of everything concerning the evacuation route. And they had a couple of questions, but at the most part, we're just waiting back for a response from them to those that will participate and what they're gonna contribute to that process. So we also had the, Mr. Price, the senator, he was there also, and he gave a little talk to the people concerning the governor's involvement in that project. And so hopefully we can get some positive result and response back so we can move forward with this to protect the people in that area, not only for the people, but also to give the industries that are there now another access road that they can use. So with that, we can move on. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, Central Canal Cave-ins update.
Sure we didn't get to it yet with all the weather, so I know they're being patient about it, they understand, so I appreciate it when we do have an opportunity, since it's been on here for a while, that we get to it. Thank you.
Next item.
Appeal to Parish Council regarding the Planners Commission's decision to grant approval to FGLA LLC's land use application item number 18-30.
Okay, on December 19th, at our special meeting, we had a motion to deny the appeal of FGLA's application with a favorable vote that was subject to finalization of some specific conditions. This resolution formalizes those conditions, and at this time, I'll ask our legal counsel to highlight this resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to refresh everybody's memory, at the December 19th meeting, the council, various council members asked for some additional conditions to be placed on the land use application permit that would include hiring priorities, local business, environmental monitoring, participation in the alternate access route, and health screening. And so we've tried to blend those into this formal resolution to make those requests a reality. What you voted on December 19th was technically to deny the appeal, but only if these conditions were put in. And you made that denial ineffective until you operate today. So that's what this is. And I thought I'd just go over it by way of summary. A great deal of this is technical, especially when we get into the environmental monitoring. But I'll be happy to answer any questions at as deep a detail level as you want. But I'll just sort of hit the highlights as we go through it, and I know you have the resolution in your packets up there. The whole first page is the various whereases. These themselves are not regulatory, but they go through and describe the process from cradle to grave, so that, number one, there's a record in the council minutes of exactly what's gone on, and number two, people who follow you later on and have to enforce permits under this land use approval, they'll have a cross-reference. They can go back and see how we got there. I thought it's worthwhile calling out a few of those whereases, even though they are routine. I wanted to point out that it talks about what FG committed to in their application, so that can be incorporated here. It also talks about how FG has entered into a cooperative endeavor agreement with the state, and that FG has adopted its Think Local policy, which is an important initiative, although by itself we thought it was not enough, and that's why it's important to have other provisions here in this resolution. So after all the whereases, the first, now therefore be it resolved, which is on page 2, kind of toward the bottom, that is essentially the same thing that the Planning Commission adopted. And you, in adopting this, are essentially readopting the Planning Commission's position for sections A, B, and C. And those are the extent of approval and how big the facility can be, a start date limitation, which is something we've been putting in all of the approvals, and the incorporation of the parish's emergency response ordinance. So A, B, and C, which brings us up to page 3, are the conditions established by the Planning Commission. From D through I, those are all the new conditions based on your request at December 19th meeting. The first and maybe most important of those is the training, hiring, and contracting under D. The first big thing is that FG would establish its Workforce Academy. And this resolution spells out the broad parameters of what that academy would be. It'll be designed to bridge semi-skilled or underemployed workers to match them with job opportunities at FG. It'll provide preparatory training, and it'll provide educational employment opportunities for citizens over 18. FG would have to work with the River Parishes Community College, Baton Rouge Community College, the Louisiana Workforce Commission, LED, and any local workforce development officials to develop the curriculum and work under what they call the ADDIE framework, which is to assess, design, develop, implement, and evaluate as the sort of model of the curriculum. FG would provide St. James Parish residents with top priority for entrance into the academy. And in the first year, this establishes that FG would allow residents in districts 5, 6, and 7 who meet objective employment criteria, such as drug tests, no criminal record, the right to enroll in the academy. And admission of all residents who are qualified may be spread over multiple sessions because we don't know how many people there will be, but this is a commitment to make room for them. Now, in addition to people applying directly themselves, we have a provision in here where the parish could establish an office to make referrals into the program so it can be integrated with parish programs. That's letter E. And then F, which I think is very important, FG will give St. James Parish residents who complete the academy an opportunity to interview for any open positions at the facility. All right, now that brings us to the middle of page 4. From there on down, we deal with contracting services and that sort of stuff. Number 2, to the extent allowed by law, and there are some legal limitations, FG will give preference to qualified residents and qualified firms in St. James Parish for construction and other contracts. But more importantly, there's a requirement that contractual provisions be put in FG's contract, put in and enforced for these local preferences, and that those have to be passed down the subcontracting chain. That kind of addresses the issue, I think, that came up with YCI last month or 2 months ago. Sort of the same thing for the next one. To the extent allowed by law, there would be preference for qualified vendors for non-specialized equipment, services, and supplies. And again, that has to be passed down and enforced in the contracting and subcontracting chain. Number 4, FG would conduct outreach efforts on their website and other local venues on an ongoing basis to be sure local people and businesses know how to take advantage of opportunities at FG. Number 5, FG would publish information about where to inquire. You know, you often have situations where you have a big, huge company, but local folks aren't going to know who to go to and who to talk to. This requires a point of contact, so to speak, and the parish can designate an office that would receive that information, so there would be a point of contact within the parish where local people could be directed where they could go to do business with FG. And then number 6 is that FG would apply their Think Local policy in good faith and to the best of its ability. So that brings us to the top of page 5. E is alternative access route, a commitment to participate on an equitable basis with other industries in the area. The idea is that everybody helps to pay for it, and that's built in here. F is health screening, cooperation with St. James Parish Hospital to provide free health screenings for residents of District 5. So that will be supported by FG. Item G is beautification, and there are 2 items there. One is to screen the facility from residential areas to the east, providing a forested buffer to mitigate the visual impacts on the residential areas. Something similar to what we put in Ergon's, although this one's a little bit stronger. And then G2, another beautification thing in cooperation with St. James Parish. FG will seek out and support projects in District 5 designed to enhance the aesthetic value of the community. That brings us to H, which is the most extensive. This is the environmental monitoring piece. This one's kind of complicated, so I'm going to have to give you a quick overview about it. As you know, environmental monitoring can be very technical, very detailed, lots of scientific issues involved with it. So what we did is took a look at some already established EPA requirements that apply to fence line monitoring for refineries, and adapt those to the situation that we have here for FG. And those guidelines already establish laboratory protocols, equipment requirements, spacing, all that kind of stuff. So we didn't have to reinvent the wheel there, but we basically took that section of the Code of Federal Regulations. For those who are interested, it's 40 CFR 63.658, it's a whole section on it. And we tweaked it to work here. Some things we completely eliminated, many things we added. It went back and forth. I'll give you an example. The guidelines for refineries allowed them to first do background monitoring and then only report basically the difference. Here, we're not allowing an adjustment for background. It's going to be the just raw data. So that way, even though it may not just be FG's emissions that are hitting the monitors, we'll know everybody's emissions. Now, I'll be real clear about it. It's not all FG's, but the monitors will record everything, and then you'll be able to see the data. So I'm going to track you through under H. Number 1, we revised one sentence to make it clear that this is going to apply to the eastern property boundary. On the west is just industry in the other direction, so we're not requiring monitoring there. Number 2 is really important. The refinery fence line monitoring requirements only require monitoring benzene. And that's actually not one of the constituents of concern here. So we're changing that. It's called a target analyte. And we're changing that to require 3 substances to be monitored because they're the ones of greatest concern in this application. And that would be the 1,3-butadiene, vinyl acetate, and ethylene oxide. And A lot of folks have talked about ethylene oxide, so that's going to be monitored directly. Item 3 is a technical change to paragraph C of the regulation, as is item 4. I'll skip over the technical parts of that, but I can come back to it if you want. Items 5 and 6 delete some provisions. Some of those provisions are background. Yes, sir?
I got a question on 4. With the marine vessels loading operations, I know one of the constituents mentioned, things going on the river. I see they're gonna have one passive monitor
Correct.
to be sited on the shoreline adjacent to the dock.
Correct.
There'll be a permanent analytical, there'll be something permanent on the dock, ships come and go, so I'm just asking.
Correct. And that's covered by the existing regulations that we're tapping into here.
Okay, thank you.
All right, items 5 and 6 are deleting some requirements that make sense for refineries, but not for us. The same way with 7, it's just a technical modification to the procedures that get followed in that method 325B. Item 8 is deletion of some provisions that we don't want to use here, and those involve schedules for sampling, and that's why we have number 9. We have our own schedule for sampling, and let me explain how that runs. The way the sampling is done, the detectors essentially suck in air into a canister, and they suck in air for 14 days. So in this canister, you basically have 14 days worth of air, and then that goes and gets tested. So in essence, you're getting an average over the 14 days when you test it. The way this is set up, initially for the first full 2 years, sampling is continuous. As soon as one 14-day sample is done, the next one starts. After 2 years, if there are 52 consecutive clean samples, that is, all of the analytes are below the ambient air standards, then they can drop back to a monthly schedule. And if that monthly schedule shows performance where they don't ever exceed the ambient air standards for each of those constituents, they can drop back to quarterly sampling. So that's kind of the staged thing. This is actually more demanding than the federal requirements for refineries. The federal requirement of refineries actually allows them to go all the way back down to once a year monitoring. This stops it if they've had 4 years of performance at quarterly monitoring.
Vic,
Yes, sir.
one more question. Well, the monitoring will start when the facility is in operation, correct?
Correct.
Okay, we're talking 2 years. I wanted 2 years to start now, and then 2 years from now the facility is starting up. Well, okay.
Yeah.
Making sure.
And then item 11, it's deleting a number of sections that just don't apply to our situation. All right, importantly, the data produced by this monitoring will be available to the parish. Secondly, there will be semi-annual reports submitted, and those reports will have to show how the environmental measurements taken by the monitoring stack up against the ambient air standards. Now, what we expect, at least based on the modeling, you may remember that the presentations made by FG indicate that at the fence line, they will be only at 25%, that is 1/4 of the ambient air standard limitation, which basically means 4 times better than the requirement. And that's what we would expect to be seeing in the monitoring reports if the modeling is correct. And so in essence, keep in mind this modeling is just a way of validating whether or not the limitations that are put in the air permit do in fact perform as predicted. Then there's a final paragraph at the bottom of page 6. Currently, EPA does not have any requirement for fence line monitoring for this type of plant. If in the future EPA does promulgate those requirements, then those requirements would kick in and in replacement for all of these details. so long as those requirements are at least as rigorous as these. And they will always have to monitor all three of the major constituents here. So that's what that last paragraph is. All right, almost done. Top of page 7. There's a reporting requirement. In addition to the environmental reporting, FG would report annually on the training, hiring, and contracting that's required under here. They would report annually on the health screening, and they would report annually on the beautification measures. That's under reporting item 1. Under reporting item 2, St. James would have the right to audit the reports. That way you have a check and balance on whether they are accurate. Then the final 2 paragraphs are resolutions addressing the findings of the Planning Commission that you would concur in here, and addressing the issue of buffer areas around the plant. And it's a finding that the 300-foot setback plus the location of the plant provide adequate buffer areas. So that's it, sort of soup to nuts. This is one that we worked on a lot. Ms. Bliss Higgins, the parish's environmental consultant, spent a lot of time with me, especially on the environmental pieces. We worked a lot with the materials that FG had supplied, and finally got it worked out. This is the most extensive resolution we've ever put forth in the land use program, and I think it will serve as a good model for future industries that may be considered as well. So with that, I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Vic. At this time, now that we've heard the resolution, we'll move on to public comment on this resolution. If anybody has any public comment, we ask you to fill out one of the comment forms. This public comment is specific to this resolution in regards to the conditions being established on FG's application. First public comment, Ms. Ann Rolfs.
Ann Rolfes, 2803 St. Philip Street in New Orleans. Thanks again for having me here. And I'd like to start with words from Formosa. Don't trust us, track us. Right? That's what they have said every time that they are before y'all. We sent you all a letter. The Louisiana Bucket Brigade, Rise St. James, Gulf Restoration Network, and 350 New Orleans, letting you all know that the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality fined Formosa in Texas $121,875 for its pollution. We asked y'all for a delay in this vote so that y'all could look into what happened in Texas. It's serious. The state of Texas has fined this company over $100,000, and by their own words, don't trust us, say the issues managers, track us, right? Why don't y'all do exactly what they say and pause this vote and find out why they were fined in Texas? I'm gonna read y'all a bit of a story about what happened from the Victoria Advocate. It's a major newspaper in Texas. A plastics company has been fined almost $122,000 for polluting a South Texas waterway with plastic pellets. This is just last week, marking a victory for at its 2,500-acre plant near Lavaca Bay. Formosa Plastics Corporation makes pellets that can be used to create plastic products like the junk they're going to make here, throwaway bottles and bags. But the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, the state agency charged with enforcing environmental rules, found that the company repeatedly failed to stop those pellets from making their way into a nearby creek that flows to a bay, which eventually leads into the Gulf of Mexico. In response, the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality fined Formosa almost $122,000 and ordered the company to clean up the surrounding waterways. I mean, y'all, they're polluting in Texas. They've been fined. I think that you ought to look into this by their own words. They tell y'all to track them. Just a point of irony here, we had a nice presentation by the Keep Louisiana Beautiful gentleman talking about recycling, talking about not trashing the parish. I mean, who can trash this parish more than Formosa? They're already trashing Texas. There is not enough recycling capacity in the world to recycle what Formosa is going to produce. We have sent y'all the fact sheets. I'll send them to y'all again tomorrow. They are planning to produce an enormous amount of plastics. It cannot be handled. So if you really care about recycling, Parish President Roussel, then you will reverse course on this nightmare, this scourge on your parish. I don't know what to say, y'all. They just got fined in Texas. It is a reasonable request to ask y'all to pause this vote. To pause and roll up your sleeves and find out what happened. Don't trust Formosa, track them. What do y'all have to say about that, issues managers? Can we pause the vote and do just what y'all say, find out more about it? Why do you think they have to have an issues managers firm here from Baton Rouge, right? Because they have issues, as they're showing in Texas.
Ms. Stephanie Cooper.
Good evening again. Stephanie Cooper, 8143 Kingsbury Street, St. James, Louisiana. And thank you all again as well. Formosa, it's so wonderful to hear all those, a lot of alphabets and numbers I just heard a few minutes ago, and exaggeration as well. Like the lady just said a few minutes ago, when they know they're in a lot of lawsuit in this country and out of this country as well, got a lot of nerve to bring a lot of exaggeration this morning. A lot of alphabets and numbers I heard a few minutes ago. But thank you all so much for that report there. But you know, I have this question for you, Councilman, and for the President, Mr. Timmy Roussel as well. If you can answer yes to all of these questions, you absolutely can give Formosa their permit. And I'm going to start with this, and it says, if Formosa promised to not let harmful, dangerous chemicals to be released by water, by air, or by shipment, permit them. If Formosa promised they would have a buffer zone and nothing disastrous will harm the people, because that's a church in close proximity of FG where they want to locate, St. Louis Academy, the children, number one, the people as well. You know, I pity the people in Mount Calvary, because not only their church is being built as we speak, they have to run in the church, fanning and running because of the pollution from Formosa and the other one as well. Coming out of the church, they have to do the same thing as well, running back into their vehicles. If Formosa decide and believe that they will not destroy the ozone level, then vote them in. If you feel deep down in your God-given soul that he has petitioned in your heart to give them access, permit them. If you feel that you can vote 100% that the children will not be affected and God's people will not get sick or die from the emission and pollution, vote it. By all means necessary, when you close your eyes at night, may your dreams and your sleep be sweet, thinking about all those people who are sick and who are ill. Can you imagine in your mind's eyes the school children and the people being harmed in the 5th District on both sides of the river? I mentioned earlier about the spacesuit, and don't forget the goggles as well, that the poor kids going to also bring and carry to school with them, along with the other pollutants as well that FG planning on giving to us. If all of those things FG said that they're not going to do, well, guess what? You can permit them in as well. So, it boils down to this. If it is a yes to any of the things that I just said a few minutes ago, without any remorse or any compassion, then all that I just mentioned, that it was not just affect you, but you know what? The blood of Formosa and its company and all this vermin that is bringing in pollutants that is bringing with them, excuse me, may that be on your hands too as well. If all of those things that I just mentioned is a yes, give them access and go on and vote. I thank you all so much. Have a good evening.
Ms. Rita Cooper?
Rita Cooper, 8171 Highway 18 is my mailing address. 8190 is my physical address. I thank the council, the parish president, for allowing me to speak. But I don't care what Formosa City gonna do. The only person I know that control the world is the man named Jesus Christ. So
John King.
Good afternoon, John King, 301 Main Street, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I just wanted to first urge the council to vote in support of the resolution that's been presented to you. It is an extremely comprehensive document. It was, as Mr. Frankowitz pointed out, the most complete and detailed resolution in the land use planning history. And it does deal with and accommodate in a very detailed way all of the various concerns raised by Mr. St. Pierre and Mr. Cooper on December 19th. So I would urge you to vote for the resolution. One thing I did want to point out was regarding the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. There was in fact a penalty that was agreed to by Formosa Plastics in the regular administrative proceedings in Texas. It was finalized on January 16th of this year, and it is called an agreed order, and it's signed by the commissioner for the TCEQ, the executive director, and Formosa. And it mentions that it is in fact a complete and fully integrated agreement of the parties. And so the $121,000 penalty was actually a settlement, agreed upon settlement with the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. And in this, it points out that as far back as July of 2017, Formosa in Texas had put in multiple types of best management practices and equipment, including a cone filter, floating booms, wedge and gate screens, and gabions, which are those types of rock filters, to make sure that these plastic pellets didn't get into Lavaca Bay. And so all of that has been in place for some period of time, and Formosa FG is learning from those things. In fact, we're designing our stormwater retention ponds to include various types of best management practices and structural controls, including junction boxes and fabric filters for stormwater, which might pick up these pellets to be captured by those fabric filters. We also have a very extensive centralized wastewater treatment plant plan, which has multiple different types of treatment units designed to remove solids before they're discharged. We, of course, will have stringent LPDES permitting issued by the DEQ. So in terms of learning about this plastic pollution and the pellets that might be discharged, we have taken some knowledge from the Texas facility, and we're also incorporating more structural controls and best management practices here to learn from that. I'd also like to point out just briefly that many of the industries along the Gulf Coast, including Formosa in Texas, have joined together, and they have a $1 billion fund and they've created a group called the Alliance to End Plastic Waste. And what they are trying to do is to ensure that, along with 30 other groups, that they spend this $1 billion that's been pledged to make sure that plastics that are created don't get into the oceans of the world. In fact, they are part of that $1 billion is going to go to help support the Renews Ocean program, which is run by a Salt Lake City recycling company called Renewology, to capture plastics entering the oceans from 10 major rivers shown to carry the vast majority of land-based waste to the ocean. So Formosa is part of the solution in Texas and has been for some time, and in fact will be part of the solution here. And part of this resolution here, with the stringent controls that have been placed on us by the parish council, which we're more than happy to have in this resolution and abide by and report to you on, will show that FG itself is part of the solution. Thank you very much.
Mr. Troy Bourne.
My name is Troy Bourne. I'm a resident of Gramercy for years old. The only time that I left the area was to move out for education or for a job. I'm for FG. I'm for any industry that comes in. I'm a product of it. My parents worked in it all their life. Before that, I lived in a 2-bedroom shack until my dad worked in industry and was able to provide for us an opportunity to leave that shack. I've heard several people in this room, in this audience, talk against it. FG is a plastics company. How many of you that have talked against it have taken your cell phone out and taken a picture with that piece of plastic? How many of you on the council have a plastic water bottle in front of you, or use your phone today, or use the binder? Plastic is in our everyday life. How many of you drove a car here today? Has rubber tires, has plastic parts? How many of you have had anybody elderly become ill and fall in the hospital and needed to be put on a machine? What was that machine made out of? Plastic. I'm for it. I think you should vote yes.
I ask for some quiet from the audience.
Have married a family member. We have enough of them. That's what we have. We have enough
Any further
of
public
them
comment?
already.
Any further public comment? Last call. None? At this time, we'll have any questions or discussion from the council on this item? Mr. Cooper, yeah.
I had a couple of questions I wanted to ask. I appreciate everybody's passion and their concern and them expressing it. And I believe it is effective. I believe it is getting everyone's attention in this room, including FG, to be accountable and responsible to this community. As I've said in time past, I believe I speak on the behalf of not just my community and my district, but to every councilman in every district in St. James Parish, that whenever an industry or facility wants to locate, the loudest voice at the table are the people that live there. Not the company, not the state, not even the parish government or the parish president, not even the school board or the superintendent, not even all the employees of that facility or industry that's trying to locate there, but the residents that live there because they were there before the industry was trying to locate. So they have the loudest voice and should be the strongest voice at any table. I believe you all agree with me on that. Now, I'm a person of my word. FG, we had a lot of concerns about some of the things that you're going to be producing, and we, the council, some of them are going to speak for themselves, but I speak also on behalf of some of them because they agreed to it, to delay the vote based on FG meeting those requirements. We pushed those requirements as stringent as we could within reason and within law, legally. Even requested a 1/3 of the people to be employed if allowed in and given approval. I was told that that is not legally sound or can be enforced legally. So they did agree to put some things in place as far as the academy that they're talking about to educate and train the residents that may need training in order to qualify for those jobs. One of the questions I have is I did not see a timeline on how long will those residents have to attend that academy in order to qualify for the jobs.
Councilman Cooper, currently we're working with River Parishes and BRCC, and we have the proposal in hand. And so it initially, I think it should be about a 6-month program. And so it will allow any individual that finishes the Workforce Academy a guaranteed interview with our company.
So it did meet all the requirements, passes the drug screen, passes the, not have a felony on their record from what I recognize in
Correct.
the provisions. They're not guaranteed a job, they're just guaranteed an interview.
An interview, correct.
How strongly, if you can answer, or percentage of them getting that job?
I can't answer what percentage.
Yeah.
I think that this particular program is very different from anything that you'll see in the state. This particular Workforce Academy came through numerous conversations that I've had in the community with individuals stating that I'm underemployed or I'm semi-skilled, and yet there are plants that basically are around me, and yet I don't know exactly what to do in order to qualify for the job. And so this is a vision that came from those discussions. And so we'll work very hard with academia to make sure that we have a program that we all can be proud of.
I mean, I agree with you. The only discrepancy I have is, just say I take the time to go through that process. I'm sacrificing to get there with transportation or to put dollars together to afford the gas to get there and things of that nature. I mean, there's not a cost to them to go, right? It's going to be paid for, or they have to pay.
It's a free
It's
program.
free.
Our
So,
company's paying.
They're sacrificing to get that done because they want to improve the well-being financially for their families.
Correct.
And then, even though they pass the test, even though they meet the requirements as far as academically, they meet all those standards, and then they get the interview, but they're still not hired. So, you know, that's the kind of bitter taste I kind of have, because, and the reason why I say that is because we've seen a lot of that already, that you can be qualified, you can have the degree, you can have some of these things, and still it's a no. And that's one of the things I'm struggling with is how do we, as I've said before, some type of guarantee that our residents and parish constituents have an opportunity, a strong possibility of getting those jobs because they live there. I'm not saying just give them a handout, but if they meet those requirements, what is the problem of them not rewarding the job?
Well, I think that John King has pulled information that supports that we cannot give a guarantee. It's not legal. But yet we're giving an opportunity for individuals that did not have experience in this industry a fair shake. And so that's more than what, you know, other companies have done in the past. So I can't speak for any other organization. And as I said, you know, this came about from hearing individuals saying, I'm working at McDonald's, I'm working here, but yet I want to change my socioeconomic status.
Okay. I had one other question, and I'm going to pass it on to the other councilmen. When it comes down to the monitoring system, I don't know if you'd be able to answer that, Ms. Janelle. I did some research and had got some information from a gentleman concerning the Richmond, California Chevron. There was a Chevron built in Richmond, California, and what they have an air monitoring program in place. They have like a little trailer that's set out kind of in the community area, but they also have fence line monitors around the facility, and it monitors the chemicals in the air in real time, that any residents or the parish government or anybody, EOC can pull it up and monitor the amount of ozone or whatever chemicals are in the air, and it gives them a real-time reading as to what's in the air. Have you all considered that or looked into that particular monitoring?
Currently in Yulee County, which is our Maliau complex, it's a 6,400 acre plant, 54 facilities. We have fence line monitoring similar to that. We've also installed monitors like that at elementary schools that are miles away from that particular facility. So that's not unheard of. That's something that we're already doing within our company.
Okay, so is that gonna be the same, state-of-art monitoring system that's gonna be put at this facility?
This monitoring system works on a 14-day passive receptor, and it's not what I would call it continuous monitoring, but I would call it real time because there is that 14-day delay. So that's what we have here, and the reason why I think we went with this is because we had a limited period of time to put together something because we were supposed to come up to the next meeting. And so we went with a established program that was set out in EPA regulations that provided very detailed methodologies for how to do the fence line monitoring. And that's why we went with this. This does not preclude us from going above and beyond that to something along the lines of Malio and what Ms. Janelle just mentioned. But at this time, in this particular ordinance, we're doing and have agreed to do the type of monitoring that's required for major source petroleum refineries as adapted to our facility. But that's not specifically something that's out of the question in the future, and it may even be a better system. But right now, this is something that I believe gets us started and puts us along that road.
Will the public or the parish president office or the EOC have availability to the status or the reports that's coming from?
Yes, sir. And under this particular ordinance, you are allowed, the parish council is allowed to have all the data, and we're upon request. So, and then I think semi-annually we're required to come in and provide all the data in a report. And certainly you can audit those reports. It's also allowed under here. So we're completely transparent in that regard. And of course, if any of the parish council want to come and observe the system, see how it's done when it's set up, it's still a few years away, but nonetheless, you're certainly welcome to come do so. And of course, if the council wishes to have the data that we generate, they can have it at the same time we have it.
That's pretty much all the questions I have at this time.
Well, I got your board, just one more question. I know you're developing a curriculum right now or in the process.
We just received the proposal.
By proposal, well, within that proposal, I would ask that we put some type of training on interviewing. Okay, I don't know if you'll have that or not,
That's a part
because
of
I've interviewed in the past, and some people get a little uptight. There's a certain way of doing it that would make it a lot more comfortable, and that way you can pick out exactly what this person can and cannot do.
Let me share with you. So there are different modules that I've already identified on paper. It's financial literacy, because I feel if you are transitioning from a job that's paying you $25,000 and you get an opportunity that will pay you $60,000, that financial literacy is important. It also talks about interviewing skills, test-taking skills, doing an assessment to make sure who is a future leader or who has an upper trajectory within the company. It tells them the different positions that's available and how to attain those particular positions. So it's a comprehensive workforce academy.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Monk? Yes. So, Mr. John, you talked a few minutes about wastewater control and all. Is that part of your SPCC plan, your spill prevention, control, and countermeasure plan?
Our SPCC plan, which we'll develop, will include structural controls, best management practices to not only prevent spills and releases, but also to contain and retain them should they occur. Yes, sir.
Okay, good, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I just had one more point, okay. I know you have agreed to most of the requirements that the council have put in place, and I was looking at the health screening A question I had was, how are you going to utilize this, or how is this going to function?
I've already spoken with Rachel Becknell and Brandon St. Pierre at the St. James Parish Hospital, and I wanted to kind of explain to them that I wanted a comprehensive health screening. I know that in this document it says that FG as well as other industry partners will basically provide the free health screening, but I wanted to take the lead since I knew that we were adding this to our draft resolution. So I've shared with them that we wanted to give education in addition to the various screenings. So I think it's important to look at your BMI. It's also important to look at diabetes. There are other things that we need to test for. I've also shared with them the marketing strategy, so you would have to market to the various barbershops, churches, etc. And then you'd also have to provide transportation for individuals who want to participate in the screen. They stated that the screen would be good or best if it's one day, an entire day. And then we spoke about a potential venue being Rose's Catering. So it's there in District 5, and it'll be in close proximity for most of the residents.
What particular health issues are you going to be looking, going to be screening for? I know you can't do everything.
You can't,
but it should be
yeah.
things that fall within the chemicals that you produce and the cause effect that they will have on the human
They're
body.
going to look at cancer. They're going to look at diabetes. They're going to look at your BMI. It's several different things, and they're working on a proposal that I should have in hand soon.
And I'm asking all these questions because that was part of the request I have, the beautification process and all those things you guys gonna have agreed to and part of this application anyway, because it wasn't in the application before. So I do appreciate, I have to be honest, that you all came to the table and made some of those decisions that I'm sure was challenging for you all to make, but I want you to always keep in mind the residents and the challenges that they face and ongoing challenges. And I think as a council, we need to soon pause our brakes on now to really assess again allowing any more industry in, especially in these particular areas, the 5th district, 4th district, because of the overwhelming amount of industries that are there. And believe you me, I'm saying this with a heavy heart because I live there. I'm part of that community. I'm not outside of that community. So I hope upon FG's approval that they would keep their word. And I know we have some things in place to do this, but I hope they go beyond that to make a difference in that community and change things more for the positive than the negative and impact people's lives to where they don't have anything negative to say about FG. I hope I'll be able to say that. Right now, I can't because of what I look at and what I see your history is, but I believe in giving people the opportunity if they put forth their best effort to do what's right by this community. And I say that with a heavy heart because I'm looking for you. We will be monitoring everything you guys do. We will be allowing you to come before the council and give status update and everything of those natures, and any complaints we have, we will be coming to you guys and asking for you to come before this council again. So with that, I'll turn it over to the rest of the council if they have anything to say.
Any further discussion from any council members?
Yeah, one other thing, this is pretty comprehensive. Okay, and I read it today, I had to read it a couple times, actually I'm still reading it, okay, because it's pretty comprehensive. But what we're letting industry know when you come into St. James Parish, that's the thing that you're going to conform to. Y'all kind of set the bar. Okay, well, we said we made y'all, not made y'all, we actually all set the bar. Okay, and so I know Vic and Blaze are part of the planning commission. Just kind of giving a heads up. I mean, every time we take a step, YCR was one, and now it's Ergon was another. That's what came with the monitoring and every step you take it. So we're trying to do what we can to protect, keep it within the fence lines. Okay, so whatever comes, so we appreciate, I know this took about a month and a half or so to put together, so appreciate the endeavor. I'm like with Mr. Cooper, somebody mentioned Petroplex earlier, we held their feet to the fire, and it didn't work out. They didn't do what was told to do, okay? So they ended up, stopped working and went to the courts with that. So, it's expected that you adhere to whatever's in this, resolution. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anything further from the council? Nothing further, no discussion. At this time, we'll take any action on this resolution. The resolution denying the appeal of Rise St. James and approving the application of FGLA under the St. James Parish Land Use Ordinance with conditions is set forth in this resolution. At this time, we'll take any action on it.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion by Mr. Amato.
I'll second.
We have a second by Mr. St. Pierre. Roll call vote.
Mr. St. Pierre?
Yes.
Mr. Amato?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Luke?
Yes.
5 yes, 2 absent.
Motion carries. Moving on to new business, item 1.
Resolution to approve disbursement of payroll for the January 25th, 2019 payroll.
Mr. Russo?
Yes, I recommend. I recommend we pay our employees.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Russo. This time we'll have a motion by Mr. Amato. Second by Mr. St. Pierre. Roll call.
Mr. St. Pierre?
Yes.
Mr. Amato?
Yes.
Mr. Patton? Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Luke?
Yes.
5 yes, 2 absent.
Motion carries. Next item.
A resolution to approve disbursement of funds to pay pending current invoices and payables.
Mr. Russo.
And I do recommend we pay our invoices.
Okay. Any,
I got one question. Page 29, I don't have it with me, I left it. I only have one. PJ Consulting, I saw it was IT, that's IT Consulting? That's not
PG Consulting is the IT infrastructure consultant that we pay.
Why are we paying a month ahead?
That's where the contract, is where the contract written.
Contract reads you paid, okay, because I saw the January and February, payments. I was just questioning why we're going to February when you got to February. I like to get paid out of that too, but okay, I'm going to put it in my contract.
And Francis probably knows better than me, but the contract may say you have to pay it by the first of the month, possibly, and the next meeting's after the first.
Okay, when I saw it,
That
I
might
saw
be the
19.
reason.
Okay.
I don't have it in front of me to look at, but that might be the reason.
And one other question, I'm not debating this, we have a contract coming up with Microx, and now we pay $3,797, and that is for the annual software maintenance support. When this contract comes up, I'm gonna ask a question, I don't need to answer it now, but without the time clocks and the payroll software, we're not using it ourselves in the contract, I didn't actually see a reduction of cost. And if it was in there, I didn't catch it.
It is a reduction because last year it was $5,000, and this year it's $3,800. We're still using it for purchasing.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm talking about the time clock aspect of it.
Right.
Okay.
So that was a reduced amount. The bill before that was over $5,000.
Okay, great, you answered my question, thank you. I'll make a motion that we approve the invoices.
we have a motion by Mr. St. Pierre. A second by Mr. Amato. Roll call.
Mr. St. Pierre?
Yes.
Mr. Amato?
Yes.
Mr. Patton? Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Luke?
Yes.
5 yes, 2 absent.
Motion carries. Next item.
St. James Parish President Timothy Roussel and the St. James Parish Council proclaims January 27th through February 2nd, 2019 as Catholic School Week in St. James Parish.
Mr. Russo.
Yes. Each year, the Catholic Diocese of Baton Rouge proclaims a designated week as Catholic Schools Week. In 2019, the diocese is proclaiming January 27th through February 2nd as Catholic Schools Week throughout the diocese, and is asking the designated civil parishes to help in proclaiming this week also. This year, the proclamation is Catholic schools. Learn, serve, lead, and succeed.
Make a motion.
We have a motion by Mr. St. Pierre, second by Mr. Patton. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Resolution authorizing Parish President Timothy P. Roussel to enter into and/or execute any and all contract/agreement for professional services with Professional Engineering Consultants Corporation for the 2019 Road Rehabilitation Program.
Mr. Russo?
Yes, this is a resolution for the 2019 Road Rehabilitation Program. Funds have been placed in the budget for the improvement of the parish roadways. The Department of Operations will be getting with councilmen to see what streets in their district needs addressing.
I got one question. When this contract, I know Luxon Grammar has got some road work to do, so we got some mobilization. We can save some, I know we've done that in the past, just not to forget. You talking about the road rehabilitation program, that's gonna be.
Road improvement program, yeah.
Yeah, so whenever we going through these contracts, we give them a call, hey, look, we're getting ready to come in, may save them a couple of $1,000s on mobilization, so they're limited on, you know, what they're gonna do as far as roads and all, so that can be done.
As the representative of PEC and I go out through the other districts, I can go get with the two mayors, we can look into
Would you
two
please?
towns
Yeah.
and identify what we have, and then, you know, what's in the budget, the 75,000, we can start addressing those then.
And I think the municipality, I know Gramercy is trying to increase that amount, so the project may be a little bit bigger, so to speak.
I'll get with the two mayors.
At least make contact and when that opportunity arises. Thank you.
Okay?
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion by Mr. St. Pierre,
second, Mr. Chairman.
second by Mr. Patton. Roll call.
Mr. St. Pierre?
Yes.
Mr. Amato?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Luke?
Yes.
5 yes, 2 absent. Resolution authorizing the parish president to execute the audit engagement letter/contract with Postlethwaite and Nettleville for the purpose of conducting audit services on various funds for the fiscal year ending January 31st, 2018.
Mr. Russo?
Yes. This resolution is to allow the parish administration to accept the engagement letter of Postlethwaite Nettleville to conduct the 2018 St. James Parish Annual Audit as required by state law.
Any
I'll make
questions?
the motion, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion by Mr. Patton, second by Mr. Amato. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Resolution authorizing the parish president to execute the engagement letter/contract with Postlethwaite and Nettleville for the purpose of applying the statewide agreed-upon procedures required by the Louisiana Legislative Auditor on various funds for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2018.
Mr. Russo?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This resolution is to allow the parish administration to accept the engagement letter of P&N to review, as is required by state law, the control and compliance areas identified in Louisiana Legislative Auditor in their statewide agreed-upon procedures for the year 2018.
Any motion?
Make a motion.
Motion by Mr. St. Pierre, second by Mr. Amato. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Resolution authorizing the office of the parish president through the Department of Emergency Preparedness to advertise and receive bids for one new fire apparatus on behalf of Vacherie Volunteer Fire Department.
Mr. Russo?
Yes, in the 2019 budget, it was approved for the purchase of a new fire apparatus for the Vacherie Volunteer Fire Department. This resolution authorizes my administration to advertise and receive bids for this unit through the Department of Emergency Preparedness. The unit will replace a 1990 fire apparatus.
This is, I'm sorry, this is North Bastrop, South? North Bastrop?
Vacherie.
Vacherie is considered the North Vacherie State in South
The
Vacherie.
technical name of it is Vacherie.
Okay, well, I just wanted to know where technically the truck was going, okay?
Technically going to the West Bank.
Thank you.
Need a motion? So moved. Motion by Mr. Amato, second by Mr. Patton. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Resolution authorizing St. James Parish President to execute the maintenance and support agreement for 2019 with Microi Workflow Module Software.
Mr. Russo?
Yes, this resolution is to allow the parish administration to accept the agreement from Microi Workflow to continue to provide support and maintenance for the purchase, requisitions, inventory, and fixed asset modules for the year 2019. And it comes as that saving and to us, as Chantel said
So
earlier.
we're no longer using for time clocks,
No.
payroll, everything's on that check, right?
Yes.
Thank you. I'll make that motion.
We have a motion by Mr. St. Pierre,
I second, Mr. Chair.
second by Mr. Patton. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Resolution approving the signing of a revised and our new wellness contract between Movement Academy Incorporated and St. James Parish Government, Department of Human Resources for January 1st through June 30th of program year 2019.
Mr. Russo?
Yes, the Department of Human Resources, Human Services, with the support of Capital Area United Way and the Governor's Office of Elderly Affairs, 3-B Wellness Funds provides movement and fitness exercises within 4 senior centers twice a week. The evidence-based program, Movement Academy, conducts the trainings at the sites. This contract is an expansion to our already existing exercise program, which is conducted off-site for all seniors in the community.
Question,
Mr. Martin?
more of a request. Would it be possible, maybe at our second meeting in June, that they come and just report out on the success of the program or to us? If
Sure,
possible?
you want Movement Academy
Yeah,
representative?
yeah.
I can
If
make that
possible, yeah.
request.
Sure. So move.
Motion by Mr. Martin,
Second, Mr. Chairman.
second by Mr. Patton. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Resolution authorizing the Office of the Parish President and the Department of Human Resources Community Action Agency to adopt a comprehensive emergency management policy in accordance with U.S. DOT and FTA regulations.
Mr. Russo?
Yes, in accordance with the United States Department of Transportation and Federal Transit Administration regulations, St. James Parish Department of Human Services transit program under the St. James Parish government must adopt and update annually a comprehensive emergency management plan. This plan identifies the St. James Parish government, Department of Human Services, Council, CAA, Council on Area Aging, bus safety and responsibilities with emergency procedures as associated with St. James Parish government and the Department of Human Resources or Human Services.
Motion by Mr. Patton, second by Mr. Amato. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Council members reports. Mr. Cooper?
Thank you, sir. Give a shout out to all of the people that came out tonight and expressed their concerns concerning industry in the 5th District and in the parish as a whole. Just like to appreciate them voicing their strong concerns about their livelihoods and their communities. So I really do appreciate that. Mr. Blaze, a couple of things. Bus turnarounds. Any word on that yet?
All the bus turnarounds that were addressed by the school board have been taken care of, have been done, completed.
What about that, the Bro Street? Remember I was talking to
Above Bro?
Yeah.
To my understanding, I think it was done, so I can check
I
on
hadn't
it.
had a chance to check, so.
I think it was done.
Okay. What about our entity with the lights on Highway 18?
A work order has been issued to Energy
Okay.
to check the lights from the
From the water
check
tower?
side of house, yeah,
Yeah.
water tower to the Big Boy Street, and
Yeah.
also the one by the old post office building.
Add one more to me. I think it's down Geeson Street.
Geeson?
Yeah, they got a couple of lights out to the back of the street. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Patton?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm in the process of, checking, railroad crossing in my district. So if you know one, if you know of one, would you let me know that if there is a railroad crossing in my district that need repair. Right now I have, Legion and, Benland.
Legion,
Sam
and what's
Jones.
the other one, Mr. Patton? What's the other one you said, Legion and what?
Sam Jones.
Sam.
Ben Road, Ben Street. I'll be getting with the CN Railroad and, getting them to fix it.
Hey, I'm gonna give you a call on that in upcoming days, to let's talk about it. Might go right and see it.
Okay, good. Today Keith and I went, and checked each end. We'll be closing in and you might know of some.
I do.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Amato?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Grauweiler, next couple of days, we get time, just an update on the Highway 641 lighting project. I know things are moving forward with the engineer and energy, huh?
A work order was sent, a purchase order was sent to Energy to, for the pole thing, so that has been in place already. So
Good.
Brent with Provident already knows, he's working on that
Good deal.
with Energy.
Okay. Wow, good. Thank you very much. Hey, last but not least, for those traveling to DC next week, safe travels and definitely dress warm. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. St. Pierre?
As long as we don't have a northeaster and a snowstorm, I think I can handle the cold. Just two things. I want to thank Blaze for getting Waste Management to improve and grade the transfer site in Gramercy. I know with a lot of wet weather and stuff, they cut it up, but I didn't see it. But you told me I'll take a ride tomorrow. Thank you. And also, I know we had to postpone. Mr. P.J. Hahn had emergency surgery.
Yes.
When he comes next time, tell him be prepared. We want to find out what's going on here, so we got a tax coming up, tax proposal coming up in a couple of months, and we just want as much information we get on grant monies that are available and can be available in a timeline, if possible.
Yes.
Okay? Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I don't have any comments tonight.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just cut in on the councilman's report. Mr. Kramer is not here, but he would ask if he was here, and I want to give an update to put on the record. Cherry Street Drainage Project has been completed, and he's been requesting that for a while. We finally got to it. The only thing I have, not on Cherry Street, but behind Cherry Street, there's a drainage canal that I'm waiting on the right-of-way to clean that canal out. But that needs to be on the record. He likes to get those things answered. Also, on Miss Etienne Stive's request, I want to notice that we are finished the North Oak Drainage Project, and we're ready to start as soon as weather's permitting on North Rosary and the High Ridge Drainage Project in her district.
Thank you.
Look, for the record, you need to text him. He's in France, and that might make him happy if you give him that information.
I know he likes things to be on the record, so that's why we included. And Mr. Luke, just so you know, the culverts are due any day now, so we're gonna start the project that takes Wendy Street, Mora, Amy, Lena, and Raleigh. We're gonna complete what we started on Angel, take the rest of the streets. Those culverts should be in any day to start that drainage project also.
Appreciate it. Moving on to director's reports. Ms. Octave?
I wasn't used to that, you guys. Wasn't used to it. Just want to echo sentiments that was shared earlier in reference to the adjudicated property process education session on tomorrow at 5 here at the Vashry Annex. Encourage, if you have a Facebook, please put that on your Facebook account to share with the residents of the importance of coming out to understand the process that you guys enter into agreement with Civic Source on. There are many inquiries that I've received in reference to coming in to redeem their family's property, so that's being worked out as well with the assessor's office. So just to let you guys know, we do have persons that want to pay the taxes that was not paid on their properties as well. And other than that, have a good evening.
Thank you. Mr. Grubler?
The only thing I would add with respect to drainage, and we'll get the information from PJ also, is I attended the governor's press conference this afternoon, which was a major announcement for what he did for the southern region on GOMESA funds and CPRA funds and all the projects that they plan on doing. And he specifically got in the breakdowns of all the parishes and what they're looking to do. But in the St. John parish, he did talk about the dollars that are available, so we need to meet with them and see what we can capture on those GOMESA funds. So I will rely on PJ Hans' firm to touch into that and get as much as we can out of that part of it.
That's great, right? And the reason we're going to NACO, and one of NACO's subjects was GOMESA funds.
Right.
I remember off the top of my head. So I'm guessing we may be able to get some information from Washington, who better help out also. And then if I see a couple of good points that we're going to be talking about, I guess that would be next Thursday.
And PG was supposed to meet with Sean Wilson, DOTD's secretary, to talk about that $1.5 million that we're looking on the laterals for 3125. But with his episode Friday, that got canceled. But he does plan on getting with him within the next 2 weeks to give us a report on that also.
You know, the 1.2 billion, past president and I had a conversation, we've been missing each other for the last week or so. That was part of the conversation. 1.2 billion dollars, I know, we're trying to put something in place for backwater protection, whatever that is, we haven't come concluded to that yet. And I'm just wondering if some of that money can be used as additional what we may need wherever. Okay, so.
We went and meet with Representative Congressman Gary on just that issue. And he said to get any part of that 1.2 billion that was announced, and that was like coming from HUD funds, it had to be a core approved project. So it already had to be accepted by the Corps of Engineers and a named project by them.
Okay. Well, we need to meet with Cedric and tell him we got some things that ain't quite done yet. That 1.2 million is not going anywhere for the next couple of years. My point is we may have something in place. I know people are putting in now application processes, which we put application processes on the tail end, we got approved. So maybe just something we may be looking at in addition to GOMESA funds.
I did call for Cedric also. He didn't answer, so I called Virgil, his chief of staff, Virgil Miller, and he did say the same thing that Congressman Gray said.
When we go to Washington, we still need to have a chat. I mean, hey, if you don't ask, keep asking.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt.
Maybe we might chop him one day and say, here's a couple million just to shut you up. That's what I'm looking for.
And the Corps did send out an email today, I don't know if y'all were copied on it, that they're gonna resume those monthly update meetings next Wednesday at the Pontchartrain Levy District Office.
Right.
When the Corps is giving that West Shore update. So that's gonna be our avenue to get in their ear to try to get any additional money if we can.
Okay. And I know the PLD meeting last night. BKI went and speak about Ascension St. Jean, the last levy thing. I'd like some updated on that too. That's another thing I want to speak about. I mean, that's years old. I don't even know where it's at, what it's going to be, what it's part of. Okay. Part of the last levy from road pumping station coming down. I'm guessing we caught Highway 70 around the Republic's landfill or whatever. I don't need anything now. It just would be nice to get an update because BTI looks like they give a presentation. I'd like to see that presentation.
If they're available, we could do that with PJ Hans update too at the next meeting.
That'd be fine.
Okay.
Anything
I'll see.
that's going on now that can help us in the drainage aspect, funding, whatever. We just need to put it on. We just need to put it on the stove and see, where we're at with it. I mean, we're not, I just got a call this morning saying it was presented, so I said, okay, no problem. And just need an update on what we got, if anything.
All right.
And
Thank
just,
you.
I don't know if you have it on your calendar, just an FYI to everyone. CPRA is having public hearings in reference to the fiscal year 19 plan.
19 plan. Now where the application is going to be taken. Yeah, because there is funding for 18 and 19, so this is for 2020. Okay.
Right.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything further, Mr. Grover? No? Ms. Wagerspan?
Just want to make sure y'all realize we sent an email today for the preliminary and December statement of revenues and expenditures. And I'm calling it preliminary because year end, of course, we receive a lot of revenue that takes place in January and February, but we end up having to accrue it. So my intention this year is to give y'all a more updated version of that right before the auditors show up, so that you have an idea of really of the final numbers that they're going to be auditing that still could be adjusted at that point. But just to be consistent, we gave you the report, but we know it's not final, just so you know that.
Thank you. Mr. Blow? Okay. Mr. Hema? Nothing? If we don't have any further business, we need a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. St. Pierre, second by Mr. Amaro. All in favor?